Hey, my name's Ed, welcome to my channel. I make, modify and mend things, and this week I'm going to be showing you how I made this massive cargo bike. I built this cargo bike about a year ago now, and to be honest I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever built. So at the time I had just ridden the Pennine Bridleway and I'd bought an old 90's mountain bike off of Facebook Marketplace for 25 quid to do it. I'd got back from the trip and I was using the mountain bike as sort of daily transport, and I was also going out with my friend around our local trail centre every now and again on it as well. And one of those times I was a little bit overzealous and I overshot a tabletop massively at the trail centre, and to be honest I shouldn't have even been doing the jumps on it because it was an old 90's mountain bike and it's not built for that kind of thing. Anyway, the front end snapped off it on the jump. I dislocated my shoulder, so I had to wait a few months before I was well enough to sort of build anything again. And I had a mountain bike with the front end snapped off it. I'd been wanting to make a cargo bike for ages, so it was perfect timing really. There's a video on YouTube that I used a lot when I was planning this, and it's really useful. I'll link it in the description. And I can't remember the guy's YouTube name, but massive shout out to him, because without that video I probably wouldn't have had the confidence to kind of give this a go. As I said, it's about a year old now, so it is a little bit, it's getting rusty in places, and it lives outside here at the boat, so to be honest it's not too bad considering it's outside 24/7. The bottom bracket I noticed is a bit crunchy. The steering bar squeaks a little bit now, but nothing a little dab of grease here and there wouldn't actually sort out. So yeah, I'm going to show you around it and show you how I built it. The bike is based on an old British Eagle steel mountain bike, and I just love the way steel rides, so most of my bikes are steel. And this was an old lugged steel frame. Now that was actually not the best thing I could have used. The lugs I think were galvanized, and as you can see here, it was really difficult for me to weld to the lugs. So that's something I've definitely learned on this build. I mean, my welding's not the best anyway, and I'm slightly embarrassed about it, but it was definitely harder to weld to the lugs of the old frame. But other than that, I had a complete bike other than the front end broken off it, and I needed to cut that off anyway. So I've reused all the bits from the bike. So this is all the parts that were fitted already to the mountain bike. So I didn't really need to buy anything other than a longer front brake cable and a longer gear cable, because the gear cable is now takes a much longer route. But other than that, this is the same handlebars, the same shifters, the same brake levers, and the same stem and everything. Obviously the steering bar is different. But yeah, it's essentially, the back end is the original British Eagle mountain bike. Where it starts to get different is the bottom bracket junction. So essentially all this bike, the main frame of the bike is this, I think it's a 75mm square box that runs from the bottom bracket right the way up to the front. And actually my cargo area, it's going to be much easier to see if I take the cargo bay off. So you can see that it's just one giant centre rib essentially that runs from back to front from that bottom bracket. There's just a gusset here and then a smaller gusset under this join here, and it's just mitered cuts. And I MIG welded this for anyone who's probably wanting to ask. This is all MIG'd. I can only MIG weld. I would prefer to TIG, but I can't TIG, so this is all MIG welded. And yeah, I've been using this for a full year. I've had so much weight on it. I've had over 100 kilos on this at some points, and it's been fine. So I wouldn't be hesitant about MIGging up another one of these bikes. It would look nicer if it was TIG, but to be honest, the MIG welding has been fine. And yeah, so the main rib of the bike is this box section, and then the cargo area is just, I think that's 25mm square box to make the wings that support the load area. And I was tempted to put like a brace across here, but again, to be honest, it's been absolutely fine. The stand is just some angle, and then it's the same 25mm box that I used for the cargo area, and I've welded nuts to the frame. Again, most of this is very similar to the YouTube video that I kind of used as inspiration, and he goes into way more detail than I'm going to here, and it's almost a how to make one of these. So yeah, it was a little bit fiddly finding springs exactly the right length, and actually what I ended up doing is I welded the nuts on in the wrong place, and it didn't really pull the stand up properly, so then I ended up grinding them off and welding them in a slightly different position. So that was sort of trial and error. The steering is something that a lot of people ask me about, and again, I followed the YouTube video that I found pretty closely, and it worked out really, really well first try. So I've got this this plate on the bottom, which I just cut out of a piece of steel and then drilled various holes in it to give me some adjustment. Then it's a pair of forks with the legs cut off to give me the bottom bracket, the headset boss on the bottom. And then I welded a piece of tube on the bottom, cut it to length, and it goes all the way up, and it fits inside this steerer tube. And it's just a normal headset, but it's just separated way further than it normally would be. The key part here was the head tube. So I had to make sure that the head tube I bought was the standard size for a headset. But other than that, there's nothing really special about the steering, except it's essentially a pair of forks with a massive steerer tube with the legs cut off. And then, yeah, this bracket welded on the bottom. And then, yeah, I made these universal joints up from some hex bar, or these were like massive hex nuts actually, they're threaded, and I drilled the threads out. And then some nylon washers. The nylon washers are the key here to not getting squeaky steering, and for it to maintain tight. And then, yeah, I've got some adjustment there with some threaded rod, and again another hex nut welded into the end of this tube. And at my original version, this is the only thing I had to modify on the whole bike after I'd finished it, and that's I didn't have a gusset in this corner, and the first time I had a massive load on, the bar broke at this corner, but other than that, it's been fine. And then at this end I've got a rose joint, and on the YouTube video that I've linked down in the description, he says why you shouldn't have two rose joints, and it's because this bar would flop down, and it would always hit, it would have so much play in it, it would hit the stand. So that's why I've only got one of these nice rose joints on one end, and you can see it's going a bit rusty now because I keep it out in all the weather. And then the front is just a pair of BMX forks, and again I used a bit of that steerer tube that I used for the handlebars, welded through the box section with a standard headset. So this bike has two headsets, which is a bit weird. But yeah, other than that, this is a standard pair of BMX forks. These have got a 14mm axle, and I actually spent quite a bit of time trying to find a 14mm wheel, just because it's bigger and it will probably be able to take more load. And then, yeah, all I did was weld a little bracket on the side of the forks, low down. And actually, once I'd made the bar, I sort of dry fitted it all together, and then just roughly saw where this was going to come to, clamped this on and welded it, and it worked really well. The brake cable is a tandem brake cable because it's so damn long, but other than that, it's just a standard BMX U-brake on here. It doesn't give the best stopping power in the world, but it's more than enough if you're just cruising around and you're not going mega fast. So yeah, that's about it. It's, as I say, it's carried so much weight and I've been so surprised. I didn't have to modify anything other than that, add a gusset to that steering bar when I first built it. And yeah, I just cut a piece of ply and used it as my load bed cover thing. There are a few things I would change if I was going to make another one of these, and probably the biggest change I would make is I would make the load bed shorter. When I was building this, I had no idea how big to make the load area, and I just thought a metre is a round number, and so I made the load bed a metre long. It wasn't a massive mistake. I can carry loads of stuff, but to be honest, 90% of the time it's way too big. The turning circle is huge. This bike is over 3 meters long. So the turning circle is massive. And once you're on it and you're used to it, it's not too bad. But the load area could do with being way shorter. If I was going to build another one, I think I'd make the load area about 600 mil long. I think that's all it needs to be. Most of the time, that is plenty of space. But yeah, as I said, when I built this, I had nothing for reference, so I just came up with a round number. The other thing I would change is the front end. So this angle, the steepness is okay, but I cut this piece of box a little bit too long. Again, I didn't really know, I didn't have anything for reference. I didn't do any drawings beforehand, and I've got so much clearance here between the front wheel and the frame, and I just don't need it. And again, it would help shorten the bike a bit and make it a little bit easier to ride, a bit more manageable and a bit more nimble. And to be honest, when I first built this, I was tempted to cut this off and cut this down a bit, but I was so excited to ride it that I didn't bother. But if I was to make another one, I would definitely change that. Another thing I would do differently if I was building this again would be the brakes. If I was going to build another one of these, I would have disc brakes, not rim brakes. The rim brakes are fine until you've got a load and you're going down a hill. They are very scary if you've got a lot of weight on and you go down a hill. They're almost not there at all. So yeah, the next time I would make disc brakes for sure. But other than that, it's been amazing, and I don't think I would change anything else. Seeing as this episode is quite short, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a bonus. And I'm going to finish this bike, which I've been building up for quite a few months now. I originally bought this old Specialized Hardrock frame to turn into a cargo bike, so I was going to cut it up. But when I got it home, it's actually way too nice for that, and I felt bad chopping it up. So I've held on to it instead, and I started building it up into this sort of gravel bike. I've just been doing it whenever I've had the time and the money. So it's been a really slow project. You can see it's not got a seat yet. I think I'm going to have to use one of the seats off of my other bikes. And it doesn't have, well, it's got tyres on, but they don't look very gravelly. And I'm actually doing a tour next week, and I would like to use this bike. So I'm going to fit some new tyres, which I bought this morning, and I'm going to find a seat that works. I've got a seat that I use for touring, which I'll probably swap onto this. So I think this is actually from 1993. I did some research when I first bought this frame, and it's steel, which is the reason I bought it for a donor cargo bike, because obviously I can weld steel. And yeah, I started building it up, and I put a mix of sort of like new to me mechs on this bike. And the changes as well. This had, I think it was grip shifts before that came on it. All this stuff is the stuff that came off it. And so yeah, I built it up into something a little bit more modern. So yeah, I'm just going to finish it off today. So let's get it in the stand. Right, now I just need to find a seat for it and we're good. I've got this seat which I use for touring, and I tend to kind of interchange it between the bikes. So I'm just gonna put this one on here for now. I had to get some weird shim for this frame, for the seat tube, because it's like some crazy size, which no one does anymore. I'm also going to use this little janky quick release thing to make it easy to adjust the seat height. Right, there we go. Let's get it out the stand and see what it looks like. So I just took the bike up and down the road a few times. It rides pretty nicely, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it looks really cool. Maybe the coolest bike I've ever put together. It needs a little bit of adjustment on things like brakes and gears. The front brake rubs the tyre and the gears don't change very smoothly. The cables are super slack, so that needs looking at. But other than that, it's pretty much there. I'm looking forward to riding it and touring on it. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this video about bikes, a little bit a different one. If you did come here for boat videos, then my boat playlist is up here, and I've got some of my normal videos up here. I'll see you on the next one.